It's Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 98. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy rides an Orion to the VGXs, and I prove I'm not a robot by hacking North Korea. But we start tonight with Sony getting taken down hard. So not who we're used to talking about, which is a Sony Computer Entertainment. No, this is Sony Pictures Entertainment, an almost entirely separate silo within the fascinatingly siloed company that is Sony. So Sony Pictures Entertainment has been hacked, but not in the way that we've become used to. This was not simply a grab for user data or credit cards. This was more like you see in the movies. The attackers, the GOP, Guardians of Peace.
No, it's Grand Old Party. Grand Old Party.
Nope, they didn't realize that had a different meaning. When their hashtag was hashtag GOP. It's like, oh god, is this the Republican convention come early? It is. We're going into big election season, but not
Shameless
quite
plug.
yet. Yeah, give me until 2016 before I have to really get ramped up for this. I'm still recovering from the midterms. Anyways. The Guardians of Peace accessed Sony Pictures' system on November 24th. They stole employee data, including the social security numbers and addresses of actors, personnel records, their SSL keys for Sony Pictures, and entire preview versions of unreleased films. Sony employees walked into their computers, being locked out of their computers with a red skeleton and a list of demands on the screen. Like in a hacker film. And they were unable...
From the early 90s.
Like the early 90s. This looks like Hackers or the first Mission Impossible film. That's what, like, the kind of thing that this is. They were also unable to use much of their network, like no email and stuff like that. Data had been deleted, and the stolen data, including preview versions of Fury, starring Brad Pitt, and Annie, starring people.
Jamie Foxx, I think is the name.
He can actually sing. Were posted to the web and have subsequently been pirated millions of times.
Because they were posted on the web.
So this is embarrassing on a lot of levels. One, they will lose revenue from the leaked films. But also, confidential information about actors and executives is now out in the wild and leading to criticism of these actors and things. For instance, turns out that Sony was also unhappy with how badly Adam Sandler's films were doing. Who knew? Also, there's a claim that there was some sort of inside job as part of this. The quote from GOP is Sony doesn't lock their doors, so we were able to get people who thought like us on the inside. And then also in the trove of released confidential material was a document named Password that contains... wait for it.
Wait. Did it contain passwords?
It contained passwords in plain text. Yep.
They should have learned from Citibank on that one.
Well, this wasn't
5 years ago.
This wasn't like a database of user passwords. Those are probably hashed. No, this was hey, how do I access my network? Oh, I should write down my passwords. Great. Fantastic. So, the reason behind the attack is, shall we say, somewhat unclear. The persistent rumor/theory is that, and wait for this, North Korea is behind it. Yes, Kim Jong-un's military hackers is the kind of currently the top theory in the suspected culprits list. Obviously, the Grand Old Party, I mean Guardians of Peace, but Guardians of Peace working for North Korea. So there's something to this. North Korea has been really upset over an upcoming Sony picture, The Interview, where Seth Rogen and James Franco try to kill Kim Jong-un, and like the names are not changed to protect the innocent. It is very clearly Kim Jong-un and North Korea. So the attack also somewhat resembles an attack that North Korea is suspect of having performed against a South Korean media outlet. And North Korea isn't really helping with the
and the some of the data that was left behind in Sony servers was written in Korean.
Right. So and North Korea is like, so they issued like a non-denial denial. It was like, it could have been us. I don't know.
We're not saying we didn't do it.
I'm not licking toads. It was the I'm not licking toads denial. So then they retracted the not licking toads denial and was like, no, it's not us, but it could be our supporters. Because they have a lot of supporters in the international. No. So there's that.
It's just like the people that they feed.
Yeah.
That was mean.
So very few of them. It's the same ones they give computers to.
Exactly.
Food and computers. GOP also posted demands relating to equality, and there's now also a GitHub post claiming to be from the GOP. I just like saying that. Specifically wanting the movie to be not released, the interview to not be released, and that's how Sony will get back their network. So here's the real question. Is this just an elaborate promo for the interview?
God, I hope so.
Like, is Sony trying to spark an international incident on two levels
over
to promote
movie?
This movie? Because this doesn't sound real. I have grown up around hackers, okay? Like the 1980s kind. Like, I grew up with these people. I grew up at DEF CON, and this doesn't sound real. This sounds like that thing we fantasized about when we were 16 and had no skills to pull it off. This looks like 30-year-old people got really drunk and actually did it. I almost want North Korea to be behind it, because that would explain some sort of like idiocy and fanfare that are tied into this. Who does this? Where all the employees walk in and there's a splash screen of a laughing skeleton? Like, this is a hacker movie. Come to life. And obviously it's not, I mean, I'm joking, it's not fake. Like, Sylvester Stallone's actual social security number has been released.
I think my favorite comment from right around the time this was reported was, and I'm paraphrasing, was a Seth Rogen's quote that was like, I don't really care if he is upset. He's an evil person. I'm talking about Kim Jong-un.
Oh yeah, I mean Kim Jong-un.
Seth Rogen just basically went, I don't care. He's
Jong-un,
evil.
Bad guy. Yes, but this is. I mean, Sony Pictures Entertainment is totally shut down. They're having to resort to like pen and paper methods of communication. Data was deleted. This isn't like stole data. This is took data out.
Well, and there's all kinds of like there was a Reddit AMA from someone that used to work at Sony. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff surrounding this where people that worked inside Sony Pictures said, this has been a long time coming that something like this was going to happen, because they were particularly lax about backing up information. As is obvious. So when someone comes in and on mainstream media, I heard it referred to as like a smash and grab, where basically they broke through Sony's firewall, grabbed the movie, deleted it from like cut and paste, basically is what they did. And so it's gone. It's just not there anymore.
There's a whole bunches of just data that's not there. I mean,
and Sony doesn't have a reliable backup to restore it.
Right. Good job, Sony. Great. Corporate IT and corporate IT security is a very difficult thing to do. Absolutely. And the people who know security are seldom the people who spend the money. And so you have this constant problem of, we need... I go through this at work with media stuff. We need this. No, you don't. The hell I don't.
Well, we go through that at work too.
I have told you, we need this. We need a third camera in the sanctuary. Why? We need a third camera in the I could explain this to you. But
the good one with us is we have these conversations about productivity where it goes something like this. We need this. We need you to spend the money you would spend on buying new computers over here in cloud infrastructure over here, and this is a better long-term investment and will make everything go faster. Well, yeah, but you can't have the money to do that. Just do this. No. Same amount of money. Just let me use it over here instead of over there.
Right. And so clear what this looks like to me is I don't want to question the competency of Sony IT. They were probably hamstrung by resources.
Well, as IT normally is.
Of execs not wanting to spend the money because it doesn't sound important, because it wouldn't happen to us.
As we all know, sysadmins rule the world, so...
No, I mean, sysadmins wish they do, and generally speaking, they're right. They
rule the IT world. They know what they're doing.
Right. They just seldom are given the resources to do it. Maybe now they will.
Well, and this is a good example for other companies like Sony to look at and say, oh, yeah, maybe we should be doing that backup thing that the IT guy keeps telling me to do. Also, all of you at home, back your stuff up.
Back up. And if you're a corporation, back up to tape.
Yeah, we do that.
Yes. And so the big financials. And that's how you get it back. So you back up to tape. And then you put the tapes in a vault. And then it'll take Tom Cruise to get at your backups.
But he could do it.
Not some hackers who may or may not be located on the Korea-China border.
Tom Cruise can do it by rappelling from an air duct. I saw it once in a movie.
He may also now be able to do it by manipulating the thetans. I don't know. I don't know how that works. His thetan level may have reached a point where he can teleport. Nobody knows. But he has spent millions
Probably
of dollars
not, but maybe.
He may be able to do it through the thetans. And that may be the plot of the next Mission Impossible movie, is Tom Cruise teleporting using his thetans. I actually don't know if that's factual. But possibly that is the title of the show. Tom Cruise teleports using his thetans. Okay. So, the corporate IT angle here is, of course, important, but the North Korea angle here is crazy.
Oh, it is. It's totally insane.
Whether this is true or not, this is rapidly elevating to my favorite story of the year. A nation state. So here's the narrative as proposed. A nation state of several million starving people and a few thousand well-fed ones. Hacks.
With computers.
Hacks. A maker of movies for making a parody film about how big of a jerk they are. Mission accomplished.
And then, when asked if they did it, they said, "We can't say
we're not licking. We're not licking toes.
We don't know. We didn't not do it.
We didn't not do it, and we're not in charge of people who support us." It's like, yeah.
Other than giving them food.
No, or not.
Or not.
Depending on performance. Food. Although, I guarantee...
Depending on their level of support.
There are some really well-fed North Koreans right now. I mean, really well-fed.
Oh, my gosh.
A small team of North Korean hackers.
We see, the problem is that North Korea probably hasn't seen any hacker movies since the early 90s. So they think this is how you do hacking.
Wait, look, they did it. It is now how we do it. They've done it. This happened. They walked in and there was a red skeleton on the screen of all the computers and a list of demands. This is mind-boggling, the audacity of this attack. Equally mind-boggling, though less audacious, is Apple's latest round of suffering from lawsuits.
Yeah, they're getting sued, let's be clear. So this week, a 9-year-old antitrust suit against Apple finally came to the courtroom.
Is it about how oh no, the iPhone didn't exist? It can't be about the...
In
What is this
2005.
about?
So it was originally filed in 2005. The lawsuit argues
When I
that
graduated
Apple...
high school.
Yep, the lawsuit argues that Apple acted monopolistically by not allowing its users to install music on their iPods that was not purchased from the iTunes store.
Like this one.
My iPod
that I bought, that I was given in 2005. So you can clearly see on the back, it says 2005. This was a top-of-the-line iPod in 2005.
Yes, it was.
So was this one. This is the iPod Photo.
A photo.
Oh yeah. I have a mini, a green mini.
I wouldn't say the Mini
photo.
was top of the line.
Well, it was the small one.
Yeah,
This was the
that was the actual top
This
of
was
the
the
line.
daddy. And then this one launched shortly thereafter in that same kind of time period. This is the original Nano,
The original Nano.
which I have thrown on the desk. Anyways, continue. Now
So,
I have my deck of iPods from mid 2000s.
So attorneys representing the plaintiff told the jury in the case that from 2007 to 2009, Apple required users to factory reset and restore their iPods if any music from a third-party music download site like Amazon or 7 Digital was another or something like that was detected. Now, not only that, so they required you to reset it and then restore. So when you restore, it restores all of your music, right? Except that when the music was restored, the non-Apple downloads were removed from the iPod without informing the consumer of what was going on and why. Now, according to Apple, the music was deleted to protect the system from the removal of DRM or other hacks that were going on at the time, specifically targeting the pirating of music, which, if you think way back to 2005, was still a problem.
Yeah, it was starting to become less so.
Well, but that's when DRM was still... that was right before DRM started to get broken up a little bit.
Well, Amazon
before Apple did their whole...
hadn't launched yet. Hadn't launched its music store yet.
Yeah, no, but this was... the Amazon was 2007 to 2009.
Yeah.
So if that's not enough fun, in addition to that, Apple's lawyers have claimed that neither of the two remaining plaintiffs, so this was originally a huge class action lawsuit, that neither of the two remaining plaintiffs in the class action suit purchased iPods during the time period specified and therefore have no claim. They have no standing.
Good job.
One of them was purchased by her husband's company
law firm, yeah.
Instead of her, so she doesn't have standing according to Apple's lawyers. So Trey, what do you make of this trial and the surprising fact that it's finally made it to courtroom?
Well, it's hard to look at this. To me, it's hard to look at this as in terms of antitrust. What they were trying to protect against was the fact that people had broken their DRM.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can't crack software that's against the DMCA. You can't crack encryption. Certainly in terms of a corporate sense, you can't do that. But it had been cracked. And what Apple's software would do is it would only restore what was from iTunes. Right? That's what it would do. And so if you had non-iTunes music in there, it would erase it. That's, actually under some circumstances, that's still how it works.
No, that is actually still how it works because I have that problem because none of my music is purchased through iTunes. It's all imported MP3s from other. Now I've converted it or done whatever
No, but if
it
they're
is.
converted into the iTunes database, it's not a big deal.
But some of like my conversion did wasn't. Anyways, this is off the rails. But I still have problems with music that did not come from iTunes, and trying to get it synced with my not last generation, the generation before that iPod Classic.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe that. Or if you had like a bunch of iPod full of music from another person's computer, and then you try to sync with iTunes, it would erase it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. But this is, I think, more about the people having music that did not come from iTunes on their computer as part of their account, and Apple wiping it out, saying, no, you can't have that on our device. So they're...
But because I was using different DRM schemes. The iPod would always be able to load DRM-free MP3s. Mm-hmm. The issue was the differing DRM schemes. And again, like, Sony wouldn't load Apple DRM stuff either. Like, the Sony Walkmans at the time wouldn't load Apple stuff, and the MSN content wouldn't go on Apple stuff. It would only go on the Windows-based ones, like the Dell. I mean, this was all going on.
By 2005, though, that had been mostly resolved, and Apple was the one outstanding that wouldn't be compatible. Because in 2005, I had a Creative Zen player where it didn't care where the MP3 came from.
The MP3, no.
Right.
But again, I mean, MP3 as the kind of the DRM'd or un-DRM'd, but Apple's using its own file format. And not all of the players. I mean, Sony hadn't figured it out at that point. My memory serves when I was shopping for MP3 players at that time, like Sony's hadn't figured that out either. They used, I had just got my iPod, but I hadn't bought into the Apple ecosystem, but Sony wasn't playing in the Apple ecosystem, and the Apple stuff would the Apple stuff go on the Creative Zen?
No, the Apple stuff wouldn't go on anything.
Right. This is
nothing would go on the Apple stuff. So
I think some of this is Apple's MO, and they just happen to be the 90% player in this thing. This is the Google problem. Is also what it is. Like, we talked about Google in Europe last week. The fact that they have a ridiculous market share. That was Apple in 2005 when it came to digital downloads. Like, Apple was it. Players. Yeah. I
mean, they were, because of the combination of they had the software with iTunes and they had the hardware with the iPod. That pairing made them basically untouchable.
Right. And so they were doing what they do, which is only our stuff on our thing. But that looks a little weirder when you're the 90% player in a field.
Right. Well, also when you're looking from now and you're looking back at that, you don't have the context of all the DRM, because right now it doesn't matter where you get your music from. You can put it on anything in most cases.
Ish.
Music. Movies are not that way. If you look at movies are still very heavily DRM'd, and you can't really...
You can't load my Spotify songs into iTunes.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is DRM is actually back in a huge way. We just call it streaming services.
Right. Streaming services are DRM now. But if you're purchasing...
But if I'm purchasing, yeah.
If you're purchasing media...
It's all gone.
It's all gone.
And Amazon started that.
Amazon started
with
that
the record companies to break the back of iTunes.
But then Apple finally did it in about, I think 2009 must have been when Apple did it. And
not that long ago.
And the way that you can, by the way, if you have a bunch of DRM to Apple content, just delete and you bought it from iTunes, delete your entire Apple library and just re-download, and it'll download all the un-DRM
because they don't have the DRM.
Because they don't have them anymore. Right. But yeah, there are some quotes from Steve Jobs. There were some emails from him, as well as depositions. Because remember, this has been going on since 2005.
Yes, they have recorded depositions of the late Steve Jobs.
And there's a quote: "Someone is breaking into our house," talking about the hacking of the DRM from Steve Jobs, and he said of music pirates. Yeah. And then there was something else that it's not in this story. That this is from Wall Street Journal. I think it was in the Guardian story I was looking at that said that they didn't want to confuse consumers by telling them why they couldn't have their music, which is also very Apple. No, you can't have your music.
You gotta love Papa Steve. You gotta love him.
He just kind of said, no, you can't have that. Why? Because reasons.
Because you don't actually want it.
Just trust us.
We're Apple. We absolutely have your best interests at heart.
All
Not
the time.
not that of the company. Your best interests. Because it's about the user experience. We want to give the most amazing, simplistic.
Okay, Johnny.
Yeah, unabashedly plastic.
Unabashedly plastic.
That'd be the best thing he's ever said. Is
It is unabashedly
unabashedly
plastic.
plastic. These all of these have metal, too, and the minis all metal.
Yeah, no, the mini is the like whole metal, kind of bent like rounded metal piece.
Yep. If you have the video version, I'm currently trying to plug them in to see if they still work.
Or if they went the way of the iPad.
They weren't the way of the iPad, which
they probably did.
Well, these lived a lot longer. I mean, I was using this in my car up until this. I used this one from 2005 to probably 2010 in one form or another. So, it lived a good life, and not an easy life. Something else that has run its natural course is CAPTCHA.
It has not lived a good life.
So those annoying things when you register an account and you have to fill in that blurry line of text to prove that you're not a robot, right?
I hate those things.
They're called CAPTCHAs, and their days may be numbered. Google has developed a risk-analyzing artificial intelligence that will allow you to say that you're not a robot by clicking a box that says you're not a robot. So, okay, what's really happening is when you click that box, the AI is analyzing your cookie history, your mouse movements, and other factors they don't want to tell us about in order to predict the risk of whether or not you're an AI. They call it no CAPTCHA, reCAPTCHA. This is literally an AI checking to see if you are not an AI.
Yeah, but it's Google's AI.
It is Google's AI.
It is freaking massive. The only one that can outsmart it is probably the NSA.
Or North Korea, apparently. No. The well-fed ones.
Okay, yes.
So bad. There's also a new way of doing CAPTCHAs on mobile, where instead of typing a blurry line of text, you match photos. So you might be shown a picture of a cat and then a grid of different photos, and you have to find all the cats in the grid, stuff like that. So it's trying to make, when you do have to run into a CAPTCHA, a little more friendly, and make it so that on the desktop you don't need to do CAPTCHAs anymore because it's just analyzing you.
Well, and on mobile, so you gave that example. That's basically, if you check the box that says I'm not a robot and it can't verify whether or not you're a robot, then it'll give you the grid of images. That's its kind of, okay, I can't be sure. So here's our new CAPTCHA technique.
Right. And this is a good thing on a couple levels. One, obviously, for user experience. The other, because it turns out that AIs can now crack something like 98.9% of CAPTCHAs currently, of the blurry image CAPTCHAs. So
it's a miserable user experience for no reason.
Or at this point, for no reason. So, Jimmy, do you welcome your new robot interrogators?
I have a Google phone. I feel like that's the answer to this question.
My iPod works.
Still going after all these years.
Yeah. The click wheel even works. Let's see if there's anything on here. But it's hard drive based, so the memory should... Yep. The memory's still there, too. Since it's hard drive based, not flash based. It hasn't wiped itself.
I'm looking at you, iPad.
Huh?
I'm looking at you, iPad.
Yeah. I mean, the iPad just totally died. So I think this is interesting.
It's just going to take this so many years to pick up, though.
Well, it's already on Snapchat and WordPress and Humble Bundle. Are all already using this, in limited rollouts. It's not for all of their users. They're new users, but they are using it. Something like
Basically, they're testing it out.
yeah, something like 80% of accounts in Humble Bundle will see it. 60% on WordPress, something like that. And if you want to send naked pictures to your friends. Also, Snapchat's now taking money. So you can send money via Snapchat. That's not going to go terribly at all.
I will send you money for No, not you, but that's what's going to happen. I will send you money for a naked picture.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So this is dangerous. That's totally unrelated, but I thought it was worth mentioning that. That's terrifying.
Yeah, no, the recapture thing I think is really interesting that Google has kind of come up with this and is leveraging their server technology. Also, I really think that this is just like AI, like deathmatch. It's like Google's pitching their AI against anyone else's.
Right, and you're going to come up with different ways to fool it. The thing that people keep hitting on is the mouse movements thing. And we don't know how this algorithm's weighted, what it takes into account. My bet is if you're logged into Google and have a decent amount of web history that looks like something like a human would search, you're going to be fine. And it's going to be less interested in your mouse movements. Because, obviously an AI would not have kind of, natural...
The random searches that people make.
Right. So... what have I searched today? I don't even know.
Well, I can find that out.
What I searched today? That's
no.
terrifying.
What I searched today. Here, let's see history. There's a search history thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Where's the button for this? I can search my history for stuff. That's not what I'm looking for.
Google search. Yep. I want.
I went to Chrome. That was not the right way. I want to go to dashboard. This is good television.
This is great. Anyways, I'm not actually. This is what makes this story interesting for me is the amount of AI involved. That Google has AI resources to spare that it can analyze whether or not you're a robot. And this is going to be happening a lot. And this is a really interesting application of big data in a way that it surprises me. I would not have thought that.
But it solves like one of the most annoying problems on the internet.
Maybe. It certainly solves a problem. I have a hard time getting real superlative about it because... is it really that big a deal? I mean, obviously now that it's become insecure, okay, that's important. But it's not necessarily, I think there are problems on the web worth solving in terms of user experience that weren't CAPTCHAs. This sounds like someone had a really good 10% time. Like a really good 10% time.
By the way, my two top queries are weather and flip a coin. In the last 28 days. You know Google can flip a coin for you?
Yeah, I did know that, actually.
That was, yeah. I recently discovered that and got really fascinated by it. So I probably searched flip a coin.
So under my dashboard that says Android, nothing interesting here.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, because I don't use Android, so it says nothing interesting here. Do you have any privacy concerns about this? I mean, obviously, you're very plugged into the Google universe, but it's another...
I'm really fascinated about all of the things that Google has on me.
It's another time Google is analyzing you. Now, again, these aren't humans. These are robots.
Well, but this is another way that Google can find out what sites you're going to. No. Okay. So the Google is in like the computer system, not the people. Because these are two distinct entities.
Yeah.
This is another situation where Google, the computer system, can learn more about you by what sites you're going to, what you're signing up for, I think this is a really interesting way for Google to get ahead of where people are going, because they can start to see upticks in user signups on various services, or things that they wouldn't have had their hands in before, using not only because this data that they're going to get from this is similar to the data that you get with the sign in with Google button. But think about it. Even if you sign in with Facebook and you still have to do the little CAPTCHA thing, Google will know that you did it.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's another way for Google to get information on the web as a whole, as an entire entity, so that they can quantify it and improve their algorithms to deliver better search results. So I think that this is a no-brainer when you look at it from a big data point of view and leveraging kind of finding out what people are doing on the internet and serving users better through leveraging that data.
And when the human versus robot war comes out, we now already have an algorithm prepared to decide if you are a human or a robot.
Exactly.
Problem solved.
And it'll make my search queries better.
And it'll make your search queries better. So, gaming news usually tapers off in December. It has not tapered off this December. So,
No.
what happened this weekend, Jimmy?
Okay, so we had two major gaming events this weekend. We had the Video Game Awards, no longer affiliated with Spike, and we had the PlayStation Experience
In Las Vegas, Nevada.
So we'll start with the Video Game Awards. We had a whole bunch of different video games that were announced as, best shooters, best overall.
And we'll do our own version of that. Certainly, Game of the Year, biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah.
Console of the year.
But we'll and they represented that by developer of the year, I think is more interesting. Nintendo was the developer of the year this year. The game of the year, according to them, is Dragon Age Inquisition.
Which is I'm about to start reviewing next week.
Yeah, Super Smash Brothers for Wii U is the best fighting game.
Which is interesting, but the competition this year was not that fierce in the fighting game.
No, it'll be more interesting next year.
Because it'll
more
be
on that in a minute.
Yeah.
But
Gang Beasts.
Yeah, best family game Mario Kart 8, which is also the best driving game.
Driving/sports game.
Yeah, where is that?
It was up against Forza, FIFA, Madden.
Yeah, best shooter is Far Cry 4. Best action adventure game is Shadows of Mordor.
Yep, I think that's clear.
And then the best remaster is GTA 5.
Did it give it a GTA 5?
They gave it to GTA 5.
I think that makes sense because GTA 5 did the most changes in their remastering. So the GTA 5 remastered gives a first-person mode,
right?
Which had never been available on the console for GTA, and that really does constitute a dramatic shift in the experience. Whereas with the Last of Us one was, it was great game, our game of the year last year.
Excellent.
It was all the DLC rolled together and up-res to run consistently at 1080p. I believe it was 1080p 60.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that's great. And so it's a wonderful experience. You had never played it before. Pick it up on the current gen console. It's not the last gen console. It's because it's
that's true of anything that was re-released for the current gen. So right. Tomb Raider, you definitely want to pick that up.
Yep.
The definitive edition, because I played it on PC, so the experience was not that different between PC and current gen, but it's a vast improvement over previous gen.
Yeah.
The Last of Us but GTA 5, they did actually do a significant amount of work.
Right. So you can.
Same thing is true of the Halo Master Chief Collection. As far as up-res,
that launched broken.
Matchmaking was broken.
As far as I know, it's still broken.
Yeah, I don't think they fixed it. I have not played it since the release week because there's far too many other games that I'm interested in.
Right, and we have this thing called Game of the Year where we need to schedule when we're going to fight about who's the game. Where me and Sydney will fight about who's the Game of the Year.
Exactly.
I already know the answer to that. It's Gang Beasts, but it's probably Gang Beasts. Super Pole Riders.
I'm fighting for Super Pole Riders personally.
Johann Sebastian Joust.
The game that we will spend a lot of money on stupid controllers for.
Oh yeah, no. When we build the live streaming studio, I'm gonna drop $200
on PlayStation Move
on
controllers,
Sony Move controllers, so that we can inadvertently punch each other in the genitals. These are my dreams. They are my dreams.
So that wasn't the only thing that we had. We also had the PlayStation Experience, which was a 2.5 hour live stream.
Oh yeah,
from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Trust me, I watched the whole thing.
And most of what we got was kind of E3 type playthroughs and trailers, but in December. So we got to see a lot of the games that originally were projected to be released this year, but got pushed to next year. So, for example, Uncharted 4 will be released next year. We got a 15-minute playthrough of that.
Yeah, it was real nice. Really nice.
We got a small playthrough of No Man's Sky.
So let's talk about No Man's Sky, because
No Man's Sky is probably one of the most interesting games being released next year.
It is arguably one of the least comprehensible games. So what No Man's Sky is...
It's also one of the most interesting.
It is an open world game, more on the scale of an open universe game.
I think EVE Online is the best analogy that I can think of.
It's the Oasis, but it's procedurally generated. You have a spaceship and you fly around a galaxy. That galaxy, rather than being created by each planet crafted by humans, the planets are created using an algorithm. So there are trillions of these planets out there inside the No Man's Sky universe. When the creators was on stage talking about it, he said that if one new planet was discovered every if each user discovered one new, something like if a user discovered one new planet every second, it would take 2 billion years to find all of the planets within this game, all of which have been populated using artificial intelligence.
Right, and in the description of it, they very much are saying that, you know, you can decide whether you want to stay kind of in the center where all the people are going to be, if you want to go out and explore uncharted planets, if you want to and get resources and things like that. If you just want to go out and like resource mine to upgrade your ship, you can do that.
Now, my thing with No Man's Sky is it looks, and it has a kind of an art style. It's more of an art style focus than a purely graphic focused. It has this kind of like cell shaded look. I mean, it looks beautiful, and it has, you know, really great esoteric music, and it, you know, that's all really interesting. What am I going to do? Where is the game? Where is the fun?
I need to be pointed in a direction with this.
Like EVE Online is politics and business and war, and no one dies. Except for like sitting on their couch for too long. But so EVE, I get like it's
EVE Online is actually what I think the closest to the Oasis,
right,
and
obviously EVE Online pre-exists the book Ready Player One. So like,
right, but
he knew
it
about
is
EVE.
It is heavily, the Oasis is heavily based on EVE.
On EVE. So I look at this and go, so this is EVE Online without the essential nature of like competition and gritty reality that is EVE Online. So what am I like? So I download, it's first person, so obviously I'm not going to play it. But one downloads No Man's Sky, logs in, drops acid and flies around? Like, what do you do? And maybe it's because like I don't want to just like I spend enough of my life generically wandering. I don't need to do that digitally.
Specifically in Walmart.
Specifically in Walmart. I don't need to do it digitally. I want to have I type A enough that I want like a goal and a purpose, and I like the Assassin's Creed games because even if I'm wandering, there's still like a purpose that I can be involved in. If I want to take a break from that purpose, great. But this is like
I think Shadows of Mordor is a good example of this, because as long as I'm alive, currently my goal is I'm not playing the mission. I'm trying to kill every single Uruk captain that is not part of the mission.
That's actually pretty genius. You'll
it's
also end
really
up slightly
hard.
over leveled, and that's really great. That'll be great for you as you go through.
I love being over leveled. That's
Yeah,
my
no,
strategy in all games.
it's better. So
It's also my strategy in Assassin's Creed, by the way.
so like I'm not. This is an existential problem, but I don't want a game in which I have to find my purpose. You understand what I'm saying?
Life is hard enough
Right.
at finding my purpose. I don't need that in a video game.
Right. You know, I don't need that. So I'm hoping. My bias. Anytime you hear me talking about a game, my bias are twofold. One, I like story-driven games. Two, I can't play first-person games. So this is a non-story-driven first-person game. I'm out. So since I'm out on No Man's Sky, what else was there that was of note?
The Order 1886. We got to look at that, which looks pretty, but
So
your analysis, I think, was it's not going to be much there.
So remember Rise, Son of Rem, where it was really pretty game, and it was fun, but there wasn't a lot of substance to the gameplay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing, because reviewers got hands-on with it. It wasn't just the demo. You should watch the demo, and it looks awesome. So there are, traditional third-person cover-based shooting things like Gears of War or GTA. But there's also a lot of lock-picking quick-time events and push down, hold down to descend the airship. So there's a lot of what Danny O'Dwyer at GameSpot described as interacting with cutscenes. So you interact with some cutscenes, and then you shoot some people, and then you interact with some cutscenes. And the cutscenes themselves look beautiful. The game sounds like it's just visually phenomenal. But you're still interacting with cutscenes a lot of the time, and that's not necessarily fun.
Right.
So, what else?
I mean, the one that's actually interesting for you is Uncharted 4.
Right. Sure.
Or A Thief's End.
It's also, at least academically interesting. They announced Street Fighter V.
The fifth Street Fighter.
The fifth Street Fighter. It's actually the sixth series of Street Fighter games.
Yeah, we went through this in the pre-show about how many different Street Fighters there have been. The answer is lots.
But the key thing is to notice the series of them. So there's Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5. And they roughly correspond to generations of consoles. So we have come to a new generation of consoles, and it is now going to be the Street Fighter for this generation. The interesting thing here is Sony exclusive. Not coming. Will never come, according to Capcom. Will never come to Xbox or Xbox One. PC and PlayStation only.
Which is an interesting choice.
That's a meaningful third-party exclusive. In a year where we've complained about how Sony has no exclusives that were meaningful besides Infamous Second Son,
which was a fun game.
Which is a fun game, but not a system seller.
No.
Same way as Titanfall.
Uncharted is a system seller.
Yeah, and theoretically, the Order 1886 may still be. Again,
or the Order 1886, I think, will be like Infamous Second Son, a fun game, but not a system seller.
We'll see. I still have hope for it. That's the game. Obviously, I'm excited about Uncharted 4. That's my, I'm going to buy a PS4 for that game. I am totally psyched for it. I'm going to trade in my PS. I'm going to finish up all the games I want to play on PS3, sell my PS3, and get a PS4. I am in. That it looked really good.
The other interesting thing here is that the PlayStation 20th anniversary, PS4 20th anniversary edition, that was leaked slightly before was released. So what it is it is a gray PS4 that is the console and controller
and
camera that is the same shade of gray as the original PlayStation
with some cool badging and stuff. I tried to buy one, and so they released it for $500.
Yeah, it was like $500, but then
it comes in a cool box, and
it skyrocketed to $20,000 on eBay.
So they only released 12,300 of them, and they sold instantly. except that the fact that Sony's site crashed, and so we were all clawing for like hours trying to get it. And I eventually gave up because I actually had to go do real work. I had play rehearsal. I was like, I'm not like interrupting my work on the Christmas play so that I can keep trying to buy this Sony console that I want but don't need. Yeah, so that was fun.
So it was actually a very interesting kind of weekend for video games.
There was a new trailer for Persona 5. It's coming to the United States.
You're the game you are most excited about.
Yes, it is coming to the United States in 2015. It looks great. Very little information was shown. It was just kind of some of the cartoon portions of the game. Also released this week, Persona Q. I have a chance. There's another game where I can play with these characters that I've grown to love.
I don't know if I'd use that terminology.
Some of them grew to love me, but I did not love them in the same way that they loved me, and it really.
And you had to break up with them.
I really felt strange. A year later, I still have.
It made you feel.
It made me feel. Look, Persona 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. It is in my top 5 of my favorite games that I've ever played. And that there's another one in that series, obviously totally new characters, but I'm excited. Good job, Sony. You made me feel. Something else that made me feel is this week's Last Call. It's a Space Edition.
Space, the final frontier.
So on December 5th, 2014, at 7:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time,
Yep.
NASA headed back into space.
Achoo, booyah!
Well, kind of.
Got me really excited there for a second.
The Orion spacecraft took off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, for an unmanned test flight lasting approximately 4.5 hours, and where it traveled at a furthest distance of about 3,600 miles above Earth.
Cool.
For reference, the last manned mission that went that far out was Apollo.
Yeah.
Now, the next scheduled trip for Horizon isn't supposed to be until 2018, but I know that I was super excited for NASA once again pushing into the solar system beyond near-Earth orbit.
Yeah.
And NASA has a whole bunch of stuff about how they're going to... The whole idea of this flight was for them to collect data on how the capsule itself would perform. It was not on the size rocket. It was going to be...
Yeah, it was on someone else's rocket.
It's a much smaller rocket because they're still developing the rocket in Huntsville to put Orion on because, they don't have the Saturn V plans. Because whatever. Well done, NASA. You threw away the plans for the Saturn V rocket. Well done.
Them and Sony, back up your stuff.
It was the 70s. It was paper, to be fair. But still.
So that we know what that paper got used for, but that's really not an excuse. Drugs, mainly. How's
So, Trey, did you watch the liftoff?
No, I
and
didn't.
the splashdown.
I didn't. I wish I didn't watch it live. I have watched it subsequently on YouTube, and we are back in space.
But the best thing about NASA is definitely that they live stream everything. So
sure. Well, no, I mean they learned that early
because
in the '60s.
Yeah.
I mean they had a live stream from the moon.
Your tax dollars are work, people.
Yeah.
You want to see what your tax dollars are doing? NASA live streams.
Also, if you ever want to use that material for anything, it's all in the public domain.
Yeah, they also.
So if you want to create crazy music videos with dubstep, and pictures of the Orion launch, do it.
You can no. You can use the SoundCloud downloads from NASA's Gemini. Or Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions, as well as some of the early shuttle missions. They have all of the sound clips up on SoundCloud. They have high-res images that satellites have taken of Earth.
And HD video.
And HD video. And you can use it for whatever, because the U.S. government paid for it. So
you paid
it's
for it.
part of the
assuming
public
you're
domain.
a U.S. listener,
So you paid for it.
You paid for it. We may be
We-
going to an asteroid, humans on an asteroid, and humans on Mars. I wish
to an asteroid near you.
I wish that I could treat my tax dollars the same way I treat my charitable donations, where I could decide.
I would like this all to go to NASA.
NASA.
Yes, please.
So I want to stop funding defense. It's important, but I'd
like to stop funding,
whatever.
Social Security.
Right. Because we're all going to die anyways in the apocalypse unless we can get to Mars. So this is really more important. I want it all to go to NASA. I'm all in on NASA. And on that note, we should probably get out of here. Thank you so much.
That could also be show title right there.
Thank you so much for joining. I'm all in. Yeah, probably. That's more appropriate. Better for SEO. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us. Another edition of Tech's Last Call. If you have any feedback to talk about how you are also all in on NASA.
Or defense, whatever.
Or defense, sure. Podcast at textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. Wrong cue. We almost owed someone some money. I have burn on the soundboard.
As long as you play less than 30 seconds of them. Yeah.
I would have realized more than less than 30 seconds in. Goodbye, well-fed Koreans in the north.